Welcome to another FAR walkthrough video from Superfast CPA. I'm Logan, and in today's video, we're going to be going over FAR Area 1, B3, and the topic is a remembering and understanding topic. Recall the purpose and objectives of the statement of cash flows for a non-governmental, not-for-profit entity. And we're going to be doing that by diving straight into the questions, which is part of the Superfast CPA strategy. If you don't know much about our strategies, make sure you go to superfastcpa.com and check out our free 1-hour webinar training. We teach the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam, and we will show you how to be effective and efficient with your time so you can study less while being more efficient and still passing your exams. The idea behind our strategy is to focus mainly on the questions because that's what you're going to be doing on test day. So why not practice what you're going to be doing on test day instead of watching lectures and reading through textbooks? If you want to check it out, the link will be in the description. And just before we jump into the video, we will only be going over 3 questions in today's video. And typically there is a member version where we go over double the amount of questions to give you more practice and more understanding and more explaining. But today's topic is so easy and straightforward. It's one of the ones that I'm just going to do a basic 3-question video. You'll learn a few basic things, and then we'll move on to the next video where we're going to start talking about preparing the statement of cash flows for a non-governmental, not-for-profit entity. So with that, let's dive straight into the questions. This will be a brief video. All right, here we are at question 1. Now, typically, what we would recommend is you go straight to the bottom of the question to know what the real question is, and then you read through the rest of the stuff. But these questions will be pretty straightforward. They're very conceptual, so we're just going to dive straight into reading the whole thing. Which of the following best describes the primary purpose of the statement of cash flows for a non-governmental, not-for-profit entity? So, what is the purpose? It's pretty easy if you read through these different options. Is it about generating revenue? Is it about a detailed breakdown of the entity's cash flow? Probably that one. Is it about the entity's net income or loss? Or is it for the allocation of expenses? Again, it's pretty straightforward. You can probably guess it's answer B. So let's go ahead and look at that and read through this explanation. And the answer is B, like we knew, to provide a detailed breakdown of the entity's cash inflows and outflows during a specific period, helping stakeholders understand the cash flow situation and financial health of the organization. It's basically just a normal statement of cash flows. Let's read through the explanation. The statement of cash flows for non-governmental, not-for-profit entities details the cash inflows and outflows for a specific period. We know that. This information is useful for understanding the organization's liquidity, assessing its ability to sustain operations, and planning for future cash needs. Unlike the statement of activities, which focuses on revenues and expenses, the statement of cash flows highlights how cash is generated and utilized through operating, investing, and financing activities. If you remember the video we went over previously for a normal statement of cash flows for a normal business, those are the same categories. This clarity helps stakeholders determine if the entity can continue its mission without facing cash shortages or financial instability. The other options describe important things, but they aren't the whole purpose of the statement of cash flows. Really simply, it's just to show where the cash is coming from and where the cash is going, and it breaks it down into operating, investing, and financing activities. Very similar to a normal business cash flow statement. So let's go to the next question to learn a little bit more. All right, here we are at question 2. Which method or methods can a non-governmental, not-for-profit entity use to prepare the statement of cash flows? So can they use only the direct method? Can they only use the indirect method? Can they use either one? Or is it different because it's a statement of cash flow for a non-governmental, not-for-profit entity, and is it the fund flow method which is unique to them? Which one is it? Again, if you have dealt with this at all, you probably know the answer. Let's go ahead and go to the answer to learn a little bit about this. All right, the answer is C. They can use both the direct and indirect methods. So there's not some special, strange, unique method that only nonprofit entities can use for the statement of cash flows. There's no fund flow method. It's just they can use the direct method or the indirect method. Let's read the explanation. A non-governmental, not-for-profit entity can prepare its statement of cash flows using either the direct method or the indirect method, just like for-profit entities. The direct method lists cash receipts and payments, while the indirect method adjusts net income, or the equivalent, whatever it is on the statement of cash flows for a nonprofit entity, to reconcile to cash provided by operating activities. Although the Financial Accounting Standards Board, or the FASB, encourages the use of the direct method, many organizations opt for the indirect method due to its simplicity and alignment with the accrual-based income statement. And also, I feel like a lot of people do the indirect method because even if you do the direct method, they require that you reconcile it to the indirect method, which is really interesting that they would require that you still do some of the indirect method when you choose to do the direct method. Anyway, but the idea here is that it is the same. You use the same methods as you would for a for-profit entity for the nonprofit entity. You can prepare the statement of cash flow the same way as before. Might look a little bit different as far as the terminology, but it's pretty much the same. Let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 3. When a non-governmental not-for-profit entity prepares its statement of cash flows using the indirect method, it begins with which of the following? So if you remember, in the previous video where we talked about the cash flow statement for a for-profit entity, they start with net income, and then they make adjustments from there, adding in non-cash expenses and things like that. Do they start with the same thing for a nonprofit organization? Do they start with net income? Do they start with profit? Do they start with change in net assets? Do they start with cash received from donations? Think about this. Again, we've talked about these things in previous videos if you have seen them, and then when you're ready, come back, we'll look at it together. All right, the answer is C, change in net assets. That's what it's going to start with instead of net income. So again, if you've been paying attention to the previous videos, everything that the statement of activities and the statement of financial position, a lot of it is focused on the net assets, which is technically the equity of a nonprofit business, but it's a little bit different. But anyway, the statement of cash flows for a nonprofit entity, if you use the indirect method, starts with change in net assets. So I already said this, and then let's read this. This is analogous to starting with net income. In a for-profit entity statement of cash flows, the change in net assets is then adjusted for non-cash transactions, changes in working capital, and other items to reconcile the net cash provided by or used in operating activities. So again, this is for the operating activities section of a cash flow statement, the indirect method. The financing and investing, I'm pretty sure they just use the direct method always. But at any rate, it is pretty much the exact same as a for-profit entity's cash flow statement. Again, the terminology might be slightly different, using change in net assets instead of net income, or the donations being the main source of revenue rather than, making profit from selling things, different things like that. But overall, the cash flow statement for a nonprofit entity is basically the same as a cash flow statement for a for-profit entity. And with that, we've gone over the 3 questions for this video. That's pretty much it. Before we do anything else though, we're going to do one more part of the Superfast CPA process called Pillar Topics. Now, the idea behind Pillar Topics, if you haven't heard it before, is that as you're going through the questions, you will notice the things that keep popping up in the questions, the things that your review course is obviously trying to teach you for your exam. So you've seen 3 questions on how to prepare a statement of cash flows, or you've seen 2 or 3 questions on the different methods that a statement of cash flows can use in a nonprofit entity, different things like that. And you write them down so that you have them as pillar topics or key points to summarize the most important things that you need to know based off of the questions that you went over. So let's look at the pillar topics for this video. All right, here we are at the pillar topics. Very straightforward. Let's read through these and then that'll be it. Purpose of nonprofit statement of cash flows, same as a for-profit statement of cash flows, highlights cash inflows and outflows, assessing financial health and liquidity. As far as the methods available for nonprofits, they can use both the direct and indirect methods. And they can, again, that's the same as a for-profit entity. The indirect method is the same, but instead of starting with net income, it starts with change in net assets for nonprofits. And then the biggest differences that you'll notice are just changes in terminology. Sources of cash flows and classifications of activities between nonprofits and for-profits, they're just a little bit different as far as where the money comes from, what the money is spent on. So that's going to be the biggest difference between the cash flow statement for a for-profit and a nonprofit entity. But overall, it's basically the same. It's very similar to a for-profit entity's cash flow statement. And with that, that is the end of the video. Again, in this video, we only went over 3 questions. Typically, we go over about 5 questions, and then the member version typically is about 10 questions, where we give extra practice and extra explanation. However, today's topic was just really straightforward, and it wasn't necessary to make an additional 3 questions on this. But if you liked this, and if you like the other videos that we make, just remember that you can become a Superfast CPA member at superfastcpa.com, and when we post the member videos in the members forum, you will have access to the full videos where we go over, again, extra questions and you get more practice. And just a reminder, when you go to superfastcpa.com, make sure you check out our free 1-hour webinar training where we teach the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam. Again, we will show you how to be effective and efficient by studying in the morning, only having to study 2 hours, and then studying with mini sessions throughout the rest of your day on your phone. And again, you'll learn all of that in the Superfast CPA training webinar. Before you go, if you like the video, make sure to like it and leave a comment. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.